Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the National Hockey Now Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by National Hockey Now. It is Wednesday, November the 2nd. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and joining us today, special guest, former pro hockey player Curtis Fraser, joining us on the show. Curtis, welcome to the Ice Guys. I know you were at the Devils and Canucks game. Didn't go the way of the Vancouver Canucks. I'm also interested to know, what's their record when you're in attendance there for their home games? But Curtis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you were at New Jersey, Vancouver last night. Obviously, Canucks go down to defeat, although I don't think people realize how good that New Jersey team is right now. They're playing some excellent hockey, but just some observations from you about being in attendance last night.
I didn't go to, when I first retired, I didn't really go to the games that much. It was almost like sore, and my kid, he wants to go to the warm-up, but that's what made me the most sore, because the warm-ups are fun. Right. But now I've been starting to go more, and then he keeps asking me. So it's like, you can't not take him. But last night, a buddy took me to New Jersey. I hadn't been in I hadn't been in a game in a while. Yeah. And it just didn't go well. You're right. New Jersey's got some young talent. Like, they look really good. But you think the state that the Canucks are in, you think they'd have a little more push at home, right? They're struggling. You thought there'd be a little more fire. But yeah, it just didn't happen. They had this power play, and I remember watching it, and I told one of my guys I coach with to clip that for me, because it was like a set play off the draw, and it might not have been a set play, but it probably was. And we were just standing there, and I'm just like, okay, this is not going to be good. It was like the tail of the tape. You could see the future, and next thing you know, it was like 4-0. So yeah, it wasn't good, Ian, but thanks for asking.
Well, that's all right. There's always the next time. Always the next time you go to a Canucks game. I like what you said before we started the show here, that once it got to 4-0, it's like, oh, that's enough of this shit. Peace out. We're out of here. We're going to the bar.
We went up to the sports bar there attached to the rink, and that was it.
Nice.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, but again, New Jersey playing some good hockey. So, Curtis, you played a lot of years in pro hockey. Tell us about the Curtis Fraser pro hockey journey.
The journey, it's a rough one, man. It's rough, but great. I always tell people, it's like when you're a player, like, who can eat the most shit sandwiches and keep on going, right? It's a war of attrition when you're getting to that spot. It's not about who the best is, or, because everyone at that level is good. It's who puts the most work in, and who does the extra, and, and who continues to push out after somebody says no, and that's what I kind of tell the kids is, just keep on going and keep on going. You better love it, because if you don't love it, you won't be able to eat those shit sandwiches, right? So, for me, it was, a bit of a slow burn. Like, I wasn't that kid that, I was a smaller kid, late bloomer, I guess you would say. And I just kept on going, and, looking for that yes. And somebody said yes, and I would keep going. I had to earn every contract I got. I never got a contract out the gate. I had to go to camp on a PTO, and I had to earn an NHL contract, and that was just my story. I wasn't good enough to get one handed to me. So, I'm one of those guys that truly worked to stay there for as long as I did.
Exactly. And you had to basically, like you said, battle to get every opportunity that you ended up getting. You played, of course, AHL for a few years, ECHL for a few years, went overseas, played a couple of years over in Europe. And now you're into coaching. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm doing, basically trying to give back to the game a bit. And I didn't think I'd be doing that if you asked me, like, right when I retired. But it just kind of happened organically, and I kind of fell into it just because my son was starting. So, like, I guess I retired and my son was starting H1, so first year of hockey. And I just kind of got into the hockey world and, started doing that, and it just started just growing and growing and growing. And, and here we are now. I got, probably 9 coaches that work with me, and, we're we're really trying to do the right thing with developmentally with kids.
That's awesome. And it's like we say, we've had many guests play the game, and now that they're retired and they're not playing, they're doing something to further the game for the next generations to come, whether it's coaching, instructionals, that kind of thing, academies, hockey academies. There's a bunch of former players we've talked to on this show as guests that are in that mold. Before we get into an NHL discussion with our guest here, Curtis, we do always, with the first time we have a guest joining us that played the game, we like to bring out the vault, the highlight reel, if you will, and something from the past that may be taking our guest by surprise. But, it's funny. You mentioned you had to fight for everything you got. Sounds like our guest last week, Jay Rosehill, the same situation where, basically.
Rosie. Tough customer.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said I played against Rosie. He's a tough customer.
He sure is. He sure is. And we actually put some of his fights on display. And we got one of yours, Curtis, that we found here that we're going to show here on the, if you're watching at least on the on the YouTube edition of the Ice Guys, you'll be able to see this. But this was from one of your ECHL Tillies here against Simon Ferguson from 2011.
Yeah, Fergie. He was bugging me.
11 years ago.
I got a story about that one.
Okay.
After, I'll tell you after.
All right, let's roll it.
Okay.
Ed Fraser up ahead for Nunn. Gary Nunn comes over the blue line. Behind the play, we got a fight, and it's Ferguson and Fraser. Fraser dropping the gloves, has the jersey over Ferguson's head, throwing uppercuts, now delivering rights to the head of Ferguson, and takes him down to the ice.
I love those minor league announcers that call fights. They get into it, man.
Yeah.
The passion, enthusiasm.
Fraser and Ferguson behind the play were entangled, and Curtis,
got the jersey over his head and started pounding. I had someone a long time ago that said, "I don't like it when guys do that. It's an unfair advantage." Well, you're trying to win the fight. Like, if you got that opportunity, it's not your fault. He ended up getting the jersey over his head, couldn't see. If you can gain an advantage, gain the advantage.
Yeah, you know what, too? Like, you should have had to shorten up that fight strap and it wouldn't have happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of his fault. But it's happened to me, too, because once it goes over your head and you got that strap on, you can't get out. So you're just watching the jersey punch you in the face. So, you got to make sure that strap's tight. But no, that game, so because I didn't play, I kind of dabbled in the coast. So, and I had an Alaska connection. So I went to college in Alaska.
Right.
And so if I got hurt or something, or someone was going to send me down, Alaska always held my rights. And I got hurt in Pittsburgh. I was with Pittsburgh and we were playing Ottawa in exhibition and I blew my shoulder out. And then they're like, okay, well, you can't play this year, basically. So I went back to Alaska and just finished my degree. So I kind of always went back there. But, it's funny because my son will be like, well, Dad, all you did was fight. And I'm like, well, no, that's just all they took video of when I was playing. Like, I wasn't.
I can vouch for that. I'm looking at Curtis Fraser highlights last night getting ready for the show because we wanted to bring show a clip of your playing days, and everything was a fight pretty much.
Yeah, it's just like they didn't do that. Right? They didn't have video. Like, I got highlights on like a VHS from Alaska, but so I kind of got his plan. I'm like, well, I probably fought like every 10 games. Like, I was more of a middleweight. Rosie was tougher than me, bigger guy, right? But in that game, Brent Thompson's the coach, and Ferguson was running around like a donkey, right? He's a buddy, so I don't mind saying that. He was being a donkey, and Tomer, Brent Thompson, he coached in the American League now. He was assistant with the Islanders too. Mm-hmm. Great hockey coach, tough as nails, like. And he goes, Phrase, he's like, how long are you going to watch this? And I'm like, I kind of look back and I'm like, what? And he's like, how long are you going to watch this guy run around? Right. And I'm like, basically, go handle it, go have a chat. And if it doesn't go well, then you know where that's going to go. Right. So I didn't even have a chat. I just jumped over the boards and
nothing like a little persuasion.
He came near me. He was getting it. right? But that's the kind of stuff you miss, like the stories, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But if you ask me for a highlight reel, I had one from Austria, and it had all the goals I had from the season,
Mhm.
and that's not on the internet. So like all these kids that look me up just think I'm a scrapper.
No, I mean, it was, looking at the stats, like I said, yeah, you got 2 seasons in Austria, total of 33 goals. So, like I said, you were no slouch. You held your own for sure. But one question I wanted to ask you is about, like I said, you played 4 years at Alaska for college, played a couple of years with the Aces in the Coast. How was that, like, travel? Because, obviously, you're in a completely different time zone. And I know there's a lot of times where I know, especially in the Coast, those teams would come play you guys. They play 3 games in a row so they can get you guys out of the way from a travel perspective and then get back. But then you guys would be on the mainland for a while. Like just kind of describe how that was, especially from the transition of playing college in Alaska to pro in Alaska. I'm sure that was a probably different thing too with the travel kind of setup.
Yeah, like the travel wasn't good, but to be honest, like I got used to it. So like I remember the first year. So Alaska in the winter is dark, like very dark. So like it'll be dark at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Like you wake up in the morning, you're going to school at 8, and it's night.
Holy shit! I thought it was bad here with the darkness.
No, it's worse there. It is night. So like 8 in the morning, it's night. Like stars and the northern lights are going across the sky. Like, but you kind of get used to it. And if you played on Friday, it's 4-hour difference, right? Because like for like if you're going to Chicago, so we'd always fly to Chicago or Detroit from Fairbanks, and lots of times we'd take the night flight. So if it was like Wednesday at 10 o'clock at night, we would fly through the night to Chicago, right? And then we'd be there on Thursday. We'd go to practice, which was hell on wheels. Like when but they just wanted to get the crap out of your legs and just get you on the ice, and then they send you back. But you can't go to bed because if you do, you're going to be up all night. So you just fighting it on Thursday to go to bed at 10 o'clock, doing anything you can to stay up. And then at 10 o'clock the next day, by Friday, you got it figured out. And if we were in Michigan or Wisconsin or North Dakota, wherever we were, by Friday you had it sorted. But yeah, and then pro, we would just do longer trips because we didn't have school. So in college, it was basically like you were there for a week and you were gone for a week.
Okay.
And in pro, you're gone for 2 weeks, home for 2 weeks. So you just kind of go, kind of go longer. When I played in San Antonio, my first year pro, they have a big rodeo there.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, they have a big rodeo, and you'd go on like a 3-week road trip.
Yep.
Right. So you wouldn't have a home game for 3 weeks. Like it was crazy, but you kind of just get used to it, man.
Yeah, the travel, the time changes. That's why I had people saying, "Oh, Ian, you grew up a Sabre fan. Deep down inside, you still love the Sabres." And I had people saying, "Oh, don't make excuses, Ian, that they lost to Montreal last week at home." And like, what the hell do you want this team to do in that spot? And you verified it for us right here, Curtis, with the travel situations. I mean, if you think, that's bullshit if you think it was all just that they played bad. They played in Seattle, on that, what was it, the Monday night or the Tuesday night at the end of that road trip, the very long one that they had through Western Canada, then Seattle. They played Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. They've got to play in Buffalo Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, one day off between games, less than 48 hours later. And you're going to tell me that the travel and the time change and that first home game after that brutally long road trip didn't play a factor in how poorly they played? Come on. That definitely.
No, you're right. You're right. You want, as a coach, you want that consistency. But when you actually think about it, like, didn't they sweep the West? Like, didn't they beat everybody?
Except Seattle. The last game was the one they threw up a clunker. They swept Western Canada, which nobody does.
No one does.
Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. They won all 3 Buffalo out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like that. It's hard to win in Western Canada. Like you get Edmonton, you get Calgary, and then you get, Vancouver, Seattle. Like, yeah, if you're going to travel like that, and you know what? Sometimes they're allowed an egg, right? After how well they played. You're not gonna get it every night. You're gonna strive for it, but you're not. You just don't have it.
Yeah, there's no question about that. All right, let's talk some NHL. I mean, there's lots to talk about. Last night, we'll start there with a recap. Curtis, I know you were at the Canucks game. You may not have gotten as much to see or a chance to see much of the Tuesday night game, so we'll just let you talk just in general observations, things you've seen so far this year in the NFL, teams that have impressed you, disappointed you, players that have impressed you or disappointed you. We'll let you talk about that as well. But for Alex and I, the recap for last night, we saw a crazy finish with Ottawa Tampa, because Tampa looked like they were going to put the game away with an empty net goal with seconds left. Brady Tkachuk then has a breakaway right after that on a stretch pass, and he misses the net with a chance to tie the game. And Tampa Bay with a 4-3 win. 1-0 Rangers in a great goaltending battle. Shesterkin and Hart. The Vegas Golden Knights continue to roll along. Sluggish start, but they overcome it and beat Washington 3-2. I've been so impressed with Bruce Cassidy and the Golden Knights this year. They're having a great start to the year. Minnesota downs Montreal 4-1 as the ownage of Marc-Andre Fleury over the Montreal Canadiens continues. No question about that. Doesn't matter where he plays them at this point. He just plays very well against that team. We had Islanders beat Chicago 3-1. Of course, an injury to Alex Stalock in that game and a collision with Casey Cizikas. I'm sure Alex will bring that up when he talks about last night. Dallas beats LA 5-2. Edmonton just pummels Nashville 7-4. Nobody has any issue talking about how Sheldon Keefe's job is on the line and harping on that over and over because it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. People got to start talking about John Hines at this point with Nashville. This has been a disappointing start to the year. He's a coach that I thought New Jersey never got better under his watch, and you can argue Nashville's getting worse right now under his watch. So a bad loss for them there, 7-4. They just got behind too big early, horrible defensive play. Seattle with a stunning 5-4 comeback win over the Calgary Flames last night. And I love the question Sutter was asked. We had another Sutter gem. We seem to always get one after every press conference of his where he's asked, did your team have the emotional, engagement that you wanted from them tonight? And he says, I think the building could have been a lot louder, he said. That's basically him calling out the Saddle Dome faithful. Apparently it was not a very loud environment, maybe because of your opponent, Seattle, but that definitely played a part in it. New Jersey beats Vancouver 5-2. They keep playing absolutely phenomenal hockey right now. Arizona gets their first win in the Mullet House, Mullet Arena, with a 3-1 win over Florida. Really, it was it was unbelievable. Florida did not tie that game with the net empty. Everything but score, blocked shots, hitting the side of the net. Karel Vejmelka was immense late in that game to preserve the lead in net for the Coyotes. So it was a great win there, 3-1. Anaheim cashing my best bet, although it was a sweat the entire way. My Ice Guys best bet from yesterday cashes. Anaheim plus 120. They win in a shootout against San Jose 6-5, spoiling a hat trick from Erik Karlsson. And I said this on Twitter. We got to start betting some Erik Karlsson goal props. I'm already worried we've lost some value here with this run he's put together, but he's shooting the puck from everywhere. He looks as healthy as he's looked in years, and he's got that offensive touch back again, something to keep him, I have on moving forward. And we saw Dallas beat LA 5-2. And, of course, maybe the game of the night and certainly the comeback of the night, the Boston Bruins down 5-2 to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they roar back to win 6-5 last night after trailing Pittsburgh 5-2 in that game. So much to talk about. Jeremy Swayman gets hurt after Linus Ullmark gets pulled. And then Linus Ullmark has to come back and finish the game, and he doesn't give up a goal after he came back into the game. So incredible job by the Bruins. They are relentless. They never give up on a game. And here they are. What are they now? 9-1 here to begin the season. An incredible start for the Bruins. And when you factor in they've had key personnel out for multiple games, it's been an impressive 10 games to begin the season for the Boston Bruins. Alex, your thoughts on the Tuesday night card?
We'll start with that game. And even, I had three pretty decent-sized bets, but my biggest bet was the Boston Bruins, and that was the best bet on this show as well. And all three games that I had, the Saddle Dome gave up a goal within, the first minute. It's a lesson to never overreact when you see a game happen. Let the full game play out. And I end up going 2-1 for the night. would have been 3-0 if I had Vegas regular money line instead of regulation. But the Boston Bruins game, I mean, that was just a lot of fun to watch. That was nerve-wracking to have a best bet on. You know, your team's down 5-2, you think this one's just completely over. But the resiliency they showed, and you know, we knew the fatigue factor was going to be there with Pittsburgh off the long trip. We just talked about also a Western Canadian and Seattle trip, coming back home, playing a red-hot Boston team who now they've won 9 of the first 10 games for the first time in franchise history. Franchise has been around about 95 years or so, I think 91 years to be exact. So, you know, a hell of a win. Jeremy Swayman should be very thankful that they have breakaway moorings, because if those moorings were posted down the way they were back in the old days, he'd had a broken leg. That was a really bad injury. I haven't heard the update yet, but to see his knee, it looked like he might have hyperextended his knee or strained something. But that was just a really
80s, 90s Nets. Oh, 100% right. That's an excellent point.
Yeah, definitely, because you could see it from the goal cam, his leg just kick out and his knee go back. It was hard to watch. I'm glad they didn't keep repeating it on ESPN, but hope that he's going to be all right. Linus Ullmark said looked rusty at the start, but then comes back out cold and, you know, makes the big saves he needs to. And Boston, like I said, just marching back and marching through. And the rumors of the Bruins' demise have been greatly exaggerated right now. This team is firing on all cylinders. Like I said, getting everybody back healthy. You know, the older guys shipping, of course, Krejci goes down, but he was looking good when he was playing there. Patrice Bergeron was crashing hard in that. He's, just always around, just kind of buzzing around. Even at 37 years of age, he's still skating like prime Bergeron and Marchand. You know, once he can get healthy, where he can start playing, consecutive games. Look out. You know, this Bruins team, like I said, I thought they were going to be kind of falling apart. I thought the goaltending was going to be a bit shaky. Ullmark is earning every dollar of his contract right now, and that offense is rocking and rolling. So hats off to them. Philly and New York, an absolute snooze fest. And at first I wasn't going to play anything on this game. And then all of a sudden I said, you know what? This feels like it might be a draw. And I'm glad I went and did that. Plus 400, 1-0 in the shootout. So, you know, I mean, I guess high drama if you're a fan of defense for sure. But, you know,
actually, it was overtime. Kreider scored in overtime.
Was it overtime? It was overtime. Okay, so over OT. All right.
But then again, everybody fell asleep, so they wouldn't have known.
Right. I kept checking the scores. I'm like, okay, there's no score. And I'm thinking, like, is this not refreshing or no? There's just nothing had happened. So, you know, I guess hopefully maybe does that mean Philly will be a bit rested for tonight's game against Toronto? They didn't do much offensively. They had to just kind of work on the back end, but it remains to be seen. And of course, the Hawks and Islanders game, really unfortunate to see Alex Stalock, who, you know, kind of wonder where his head was at. You know, he'd been coming off of the long COVID issues and injury issues for his career, you know, kind of just playing out the string of his career and having a great year. All of a sudden he gets hit, the dirty hit by Casey Zizekas. Zizekas got a 5-minute major, a game misconduct, and then thinking he's gonna get suspension, but we know how player safety works. They spin that wheel, and whatever the hell it lands on, they just give out whatever it is. And it landed on a $5,000 fine, which is the maximum allowed by the CBA. No game suspension. He'll be coming back for the next Owls game, and that's just unfortunate to see it. Hopefully, Stalock will be healthy in due time. He's in concussion protocol. The Hawks signed Dylan Wells, who was an AHL guy. He was mostly with the Edmonton organization for a couple years. Played with the Wolves. Played with Rockford. His numbers aren't that good. So you got Soderblom and Wells as your tandem. Yep. Now might be the time where we see that old tank fire up the engine again for the Hawks. It may be rough tread ahead with those two guys in there.
Yeah, Tank Nation is on again with the Chicago Black. Yeah, with Arvid Soderblom and Dylan Wells as your goaltenders move, because Mrazek's on IR. Right. There's no telling how long Alex Stalock is going to be out now for the Blackhawks. And look, those weren't that wasn't the Bernie Perrant Grant Fuhr combination by any stretch of the imagination. Mrazek and
Stalock, yeah.
And Stalock, and now all of a sudden you've got probably lesser than that with Soderblom and Dylan Wells now. Yeah. So how the puck's going to stay out of the net now if you're Chicago defensively. And you knew the moment that 5-minute power play came and went and they didn't capitalize on it, they were losing that hockey game.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's exactly what ended up happening against the Islanders last night. Curtis, you can talk about the Canucks game, anything last night, and just NHL in general, teams that have impressed you, disappointed you. What do you think?
Well, last night I was a little bit out of touch, but, you know, with what Chicago's doing, you know, they lost last night. I didn't even know that because I was at the game, but I follow them a little bit just because I have a couple buddies over there. But, Chicago was doing better than I thought they were going to do, right? Vancouver's doing worse than I thought they were going to do, right? But, like, looking to tonight and talking about the Maple Leafs, and I know you you mentioned it too about Keith's job being on the line and all those things. I still find it really hard to bet against those guys because there's so many talents there. So like from my standpoint, I'm looking at, the Maple Leafs and people are chirping about them, but if they just put it together, that's a really good hockey team. If they can all find their roles and this is what you do for you know what I mean? Like there's just so many weapons that, you don't need that many weapons. So someone has to become, whatever it is, a passer, a puck mover, or something like that, because, someone else is going to score. I used to play with this guy, Kyle Greentree, and, he should still be in the NHL now. That guy is so good. And I grew up with him, but like when me and him played together, he was a better hockey player than me. So he had to get me the puck, not me get him the puck. And once we figured that out, that I had to be the trigger, he had to get me the puck, because if he reversed it, I couldn't get him the puck as much. Like I just wasn't as good as him, right? So I think with Toronto, they just got to figure out how to play together.
You got to go to the apple farm, not me. That's what you got to tell them.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard for players to figure that out, right? And I think that's what Keith's hardest job is how to manage that. It's not about coaching. The guy's probably an unbelievable coach. It's about how do you get those guys to work together, right? Which has nothing to do with, it's like, managing relationships. It's not about what kind of coach you are or X's and O's. Like he has to manage those things. And, in general though, I think there's lots to talk about. And, like a 7-4 game against Nashville, like Edmonton, holy smokes. Like they're just, if they can play defense, like they're scary. If they just learn how to, not give up 4 goals, not give up 5 goals, because scoring is not their issue. And then you look at a Vancouver, you want to talk about someone's job on the line, right? Is our team had 0 expectations last year. Brudeau comes in and he built expectations with that run they put together at the end of the season. And, he built those expectations for people. Then we got better. We got some players to sign here, like a Kuzmenko and, a free agent signing that we competed for. He signs here. So now the fan base thinks we're better, maybe better than we actually are. And now his job's on the line. If that, especially after last night, you think that Vancouver would have had a push against New Jersey, and there was nothing of it, right? The only guy that really had anything showed some fire was Shen, right?
That's right. Luke Shen got in a scrap last night. Yeah.
Yeah, he showed something, right? If you're losing, give me something, right? Get on the score sheet somehow. So, that's all I got.
And Horvat, the captain, he had a pretty good night. Other than that, it was pretty quiet.
Yeah, and he always has a good night, it seems, right? Like he's a really good captain, leads by example, works hard. Nothing else is going right. He usually he's trying to drag him into the fight, right? And that's why he's the captain.
He is. 2 goals, by the way, in back-to-back games for the captain of the Vancouver Canucks. Bo Horvat scored twice against Pittsburgh and twice last night. Got both of their goals last night in the loss against the New Jersey Devils. So we'll see if Vancouver can eventually turn it around. Let's get into Wednesday's slate. It's a mini slate. It's not a big one. It's only 2 games, and we will start with, oh my gosh, are the eyeballs of the hockey world going to be on Toronto tonight? Because the pressure is mounted. It was a embarrassing, let's call it, that's the word. I mean, you could say, Ian, you're being harsh again. It was embarrassing. You were expecting better than not winning anything against San Jose, Anaheim, and LA, that trio. And that's exactly what happened. Plus, they lost the Vegas game before that, but Vegas is really good. Philadelphia and Toronto, the Leafs minus 320, home favorites, 6.5 the total. Curtis, I'll ask you before we break this game down, are they as apathetic to the Leafs on the left coast as I think they are? Because I keep hearing from people that say when the Leaf fans are complaining or they talk the Leafs all the time, people in Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, those Western Canadian markets are like, shut the fuck up with shit about the Leafs all the time. I'm not interested. I turn a blind eye. It's almost like put something to block your hearing there. Just we don't want to hear it. We don't want to see it. We don't want to hear anything. It's Leaf overload, and I know there's a lot of people out there in Western Canada, Curtis, they don't appreciate it.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, man. It's like there's a lot of Leaf fans scattered throughout the world, obviously, because of the population of Ontario is so much bigger than out here. But yeah, we don't want to hear about it's even we don't like Vancouver. We don't want to hear about the Oilers, and we don't want to hear about the Maple Leafs. Calgary, okay, we don't really hate them as much as we hate the Oilers and we hate Toronto. If you ask my dad about Oilers, he'd just start chirping about how they got so many first-round draft picks over the years, and no wonder they're good. Right? Vancouver didn't get that, right? But then you'd argue that we traded everything away and we just stopped paying Luongo. So, at the same time, you're right. We'd hate the Maple Leafs. But, with the weapons, it's a pretty nice like even Philadelphia's been playing well. They're 5-2-2 coming into tonight, right? But I still have a hard time going against the Maple Leafs because of how the West went. That didn't go well. They should be ready to play. Like, you know what I mean? Those guys aren't stupid. They don't read the papers, but they know what everyone's saying in the papers, right? Like, I think you're going to see some fire tonight of the Maple Leafs, but I also thought you'd get some of Vancouver, and I was wrong about that. So what do I know?
No, they should. Look, if you're the Leafs, they're talking about being ready from the opening puck drop, although I've heard this nonsense multiple times on that debacle of a road trip too, that we're going to be ready to go from the opening puck drop. But you couldn't have set this up. Actually, you know what? The one thing that's troublesome for the Leafs is they're back home off the long road trip. That's a tricky spot usually, but they get 2 days off. And that was the key. The schedule makers did a favor. Shocker, schedule makers do Toronto a solid. Can't do the same for Buffalo, though. Give them 2 days off after the road trip instead of one. So they get actually at least a couple of days of downtime following the Anaheim game on Sunday, which should help them out. Plus, they get Philly a little bit tired. Second night of back-to-back for the Flyers on the road after a very intense physical game that was. There were a lot of scrums after the whistle last night in that Flyers-Rangers game as well. So you wonder how much is going to be in the tank for the Philadelphia Flyers going into tonight on this back-to-back. So I think the situations and the rest, the discussion when it comes to this game kind of cancels itself out, where you got Toronto off the road trip, but you've also got Philly second night of back-to-back games. We expect Felix Sandstrom to be the goalie tonight for the Flyers after it was Carter Hart last night, and it is indeed Sandstrom. It's just been confirmed, it looks like. 0-2, 3.13 goals against, 900 save percentage, his numbers this year. Of course, it'll be Ilya Samsonov for the Leafs, who to me, even in defeat, he's been pretty good for this team this year. 2.35 goals against average, 920 save percentage. Like I said, the game against the Kings, he was in net. They lost 4-2. He's lost each of his last two starts, the Vegas game as well, but I thought he played very well in both games. The defense hung him out to dry. They didn't play well in front of Samsonov in either game, the Vegas game or the LA game, so you have to factor that in. I'm really not involved in this from a side or a totals perspective. This is going to be more of a prop game for me. And when you look at the props here for this game, for the Philadelphia Flyers, Scott Lawton's someone to keep an eye on because he's leading the team in expected goals this season, and he's had a bunch of chances, and his goal scorer prop number in this game tonight in many books is as high as plus 350, plus 360. I think it's pretty good value. He should be a guy. He's had chances, and he's leading the team, like I said, in expected goals coming into this game tonight. So I think there's maybe a little goal scorer prop value on him. Even someone like Wade Allison, believe it or not, too. He's actually had a bunch of chances. The puck hasn't always gone in for him, and you can get him at a huge price, plus 500 in some spots to score a goal. If you're really looking for the Ian Cameron bargain bin for goal scorer player props, and I like to do that, those are two good options for Philadelphia going into tonight's game. As far as the Leafs go in that department, there's good to make a few line changes tonight. The main one being, and I don't get what Sheldon Keefe's doing here, and I've liked him as a coach for the most part. I've had more positive things to say about Keefe than negative, but I don't get that when this team has had a little bit of an issue trying to find that traction offensively, especially with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. Those three guys in particular have had slower starts than you expect. You need some offense, and the guy you're taking out is Nick Robertson from the lineup tonight. A guy that's, he's been quiet on that road trip, but the big night that he had was at home in Toronto. Young players often are more comfortable playing on home ice. This is a home game. He was great against Dallas in that first game, and you need some offense, and you took him out, and you're keeping guys like, Pierre Engvall's done nothing for you this season. He's had a terrible year. Aston Reese is still in the lineup. What's he done on the fourth line? It's a confounding decision, in my opinion, for Sheldon Keefe to go this route. And the one guy he takes out, is Nick Robertson. So that's disappointing to me. Pontus Holmberg has been called up from the American Hockey League, and he'll be in the lineup on the third line. He was scoring down there, and you can get plus 600 for him to score tonight. So I'm going to do that. A little roll of the dice, insert it into the lineup, making his NHL debut tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Pontus Holmberg, plus 600 goal scorer prop. So, hey, we had one of these last night with Mason Shaw of the Minnesota Wild. Terry was onto it. I was onto it. That he's up now with the big club and getting a second line spot. And plus 575 was the price at some books with Mason Shaw last night. And it came through. So definitely a situation where you could find some value in a guy that's getting that first opportunity, first crack at it in the National Hockey League. And you've got that with Pontus Holmberg tonight for Toronto. I think Kerfoot would be a little bit of a prop value for the Leafs as well tonight, if you ask me. And Yarncroke as well, because Yarncroke's someone that should be scoring more than he has so far based on the chances. So there's some props that you can consider for this game, and that's what this game's going to be. It's all going to be player props, nothing for me side or total in this game. Alex, what do you think, Flyers, Leafs?
Yeah, this is a tough game, honestly. And even trying to look at some of the first period numbers, these two teams don't do much early in the game. They kind of make their changes later on. You don't have much scoring at all right off the jump. And of course, like I said, with Philly, shut out in that game 1-0 last night. You think they want to try to come out with some firepower early, because that's usually how you can get to Toronto, especially playing them at home. But like I said, the Leafs, they're going to be dedicated to trying to get things right. They've got 8 of their next 10 games at home after that long road trip. They've got a couple of solo road trips in the mix, but most of their games are going to be home for the next couple of weeks. So, maybe some home cooking might do them a little good. So I kind of want to lean with the first period puck line on the Maple Leafs, but there's not enough value there. Even at plus 100, plus 105, I'd like to get a better number. So this is going to be one I'll probably tune into and look for some in-game wagering opportunities.
All right, so maybe a live in-game shot. All right, Curtis, what do you think here, Flyers, Leafs?
Well, I'm just trying to follow what you guys are saying. But props? Do you mean like you just bet that the players?
Who do you think's going to score tonight? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay, I'm starting to feel it now, but you know what?
Some people think this is a night for Austin Matthews to explode because he's due. At some point, he's going to maybe find the back of the net and explode. I don't know. I'd like to see
what's his line though? If he scored,
you're not getting the same kind of price, obviously, with him as you would, like, for instance, Austin Matthews tonight, I think the best prices out there for him to score are like plus 104 at Pinnacle. Yeah. Most books have him minus 120, minus 125. I'm even seeing DraftKings has minus 170 for him to score tonight.
And just a quick thing, when you look at those props on betting on players to either score a goal or get a point or get sometimes there'll be an over under, so 1.5 points. And when you look at those top tier players like a Austin Matthews, for example, your best bet is to try to go and get 1.5 points. So you're hoping that he gets a goal and assist, or 2 goals or 2 assists, as opposed to just getting the 1 goal, because he said chances are he's going to get a goal. He's one of the best players on the ice for either side most of the time. So they'll juice the number up to where you're laying $1.70 instead of getting a plus price in return. So usually when I look at those top tier players, I try to go for plus over 1.5 points. Or, you bet him to score 2 goals if you think, it's a team where he has a good edge. I know everybody was looking at Leon Draisaitl the other night, where he had 17 goals in 9 games against Nashville. Yep. And I think he ended up with a goal, and he had a point. So he had an assist as well, so 2 points. So that's the kind of way you can attack that.
Yeah, over 1.5 points. Yeah, with like a superstar player, because you'll get better value. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like Toronto. They're at home. You think they need a push? They had a bad road trip. I think Toronto will show up tonight. The guys and their effort will be there. Who knows what happens? It's hockey. You never know, but I like Toronto.
You'd like to hope so, because it's going to be DEFCON 5 tonight in Leaf Nation if this goes the wrong way for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, because you're right. It's set up nicely for them. Philadelphia's had a surprising start, but you don't necessarily expect them to be great for the rest of the season. There's going to be a leveling off probably with Philadelphia at some point. That being said, they worked their asses off, this team, and it shouldn't be a surprise under Tortorella that they've improved defensively. That's what he demands. And keep in mind, they've had a ton of players out. So, there's that thought too that maybe Philly's not going anywhere. Maybe when they get Sean Couturier back, when they get Cam Atkinson back, when they get James Van Riemsdyk back, or as Don Cherry called him, James Van Beesbrook, when they get him back, they're going to be a better hockey team. So when you look at it, maybe there's some truth to that. Like, they have a lot of key personnel out. And the fact that Torts has managed to steer this team to an above 500 record through the first month of the season with this collection, that's shocking to me. So we'll wait and see on that, though.
They're talented, but they always say the shit rinses out with the soap in the wash. So I think at some point we'll see Philly kind of turn down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. And sometimes too, when everybody comes back, everybody relaxes too and says, "Hey, we got our guys back," and then they don't get the contributions you got from the other players down the lineup because everybody just expects the big guns to show up and produce. And sometimes it actually throws off chemistry when you're playing well without all these key players. Then they come back and kind of throws things out of whack a little bit. Speaking of a team that's out of whack right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and here they are laying -120 on the road against the Buffalo Sabres tonight. 6.5 the total in this game. The Penguins just continue to find ways to lose. And that was just that can't happen if you're Pittsburgh last night. I mean, you're up 5-2 against Boston. And say what you will about, again, talked about it, how good this Bruins team has been. They're relentless. They don't give up on a game when they're trailing. They come back. They almost did that, I remember, against Ottawa earlier this year. They were down big early, and they made a game of that. They ended up losing it, but still, they battled right till the end. And that's been Boston this year. That being said, you've got to be able to close out a game when you're up 5-2 on home ice the way the Penguins were last night. So it's an awful way to lose in that game. Mike Sullivan says we're learning the hard way right now. If we want to be the team we want to become, we can't beat ourselves. And yeah, that's basically him saying we're doing all the little things wrong right now. We're not clearing pucks out of the zone. We're being hemmed in. We're turning the puck over. Multiple Penguins. And I'm even seeing Crosby turn the puck over last night in that game when number 87, is doing that shit. Shaq O'Neal always says for the NBA on TNT, when the general leads, the troops will follow. Well, if the general's leading by treating the puck like a hand grenade and turning it over, that's not good. For getting everybody else in line. So Penguins have issues. Jari has taken a fall and a decline in his play, I think, in recent games in net. That's a problem. Pittsburgh's turning the puck over. Their defensive play has really struggled. And offensively on that road trip, they were not lighting it up at all. They finally get 5 goals, and the offense comes to life. Gensel and Zucker came back at the end of that road trip. Now they're giving up 6, and they blow a 3-goal lead. So it's a crisis of confidence at the moment. Every team goes through this, right? And Curtis definitely can speak to that, I'm sure. 8-long season, everybody's going to go through a really bad rough patch at some point, even the best teams. And Pittsburgh's going through that right now, a 5-game losing streak. And now after the road trip as well, they come back for one home game. Think about this bad scheduling hand that they've been dealt by the schedule makers. Long road trip back home against Boston for one game, and now they got him out there on a back-to-back going on the road again. Now, I know it's short travel, Pittsburgh to Buffalo, but still, it's just not a good advantageous situation for Pittsburgh. Buffalo obviously playing some really good hockey to begin the year. They have won the last 2 games on this homestand after the bad spot against Montreal. They bounced back to beat Chicago and Detroit 12-6 combined score in those 2 games. I like Buffalo here at a home underdog price. They've got momentum. Pittsburgh's reeling. I think at +100, +105. I'm looking at the Sabres. Eric Comrie is in net for them. He's had a solid start to the year, 3-3 for him coming into this game. He has given up 3 goals or more in 4 straight games, but Sabres are having the offense to they can handle that. The goalie gives up 3 or more. We've got offense right now. I also like over the total here, 6.5, -115. Casey DeSmith on the back-to-back, as you would expect, will be the goalie. His numbers aren't bad. 2.97 goals against, 913 save percentage, but winless, 0-2 are the Pittsburgh Penguins in his start. So I like Buffalo here and this game to also go over the total. And as far as props go in this game, there's a few that stand out to me when I look at it. From the Pittsburgh side of it, if you're going to look at someone right now, it's probably Ricard Raquel. He's been very solid. There are a lot of props I like on the Buffalo side tonight. And we know Tage Thompson had the 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists against Detroit. But Dahlin is always a threat to score right now from the blue line for this Sabres team. And you can once again get him at great prices to find the back of the net, somewhere in the range of plus 370, which is an absolutely outstanding price. And his expected goals numbers are good. Same with Dylan Cousins. Dylan Cousins for the year, you look at his expected goals numbers, they're standing right now at 3.43. He's actually leading the team in expected goals at 5-on-5 even strength, Dylan Cousins. So he has been around the front of the net. I think the dam could burst for him at some point, and he finds even more offensive precision and ability to put the puck in. And he's plus 340 in some spots to score a goal. And I'm going to go back to the well tonight in this game as well with Kyle Okposo, who has been moved up to the top line for the Buffalo Sabres. Tage Thompson and Skinner got all the goals the other night on that top line. Those are his line mates. He didn't get any from Okposo against Detroit, but he was all over the puck. He had multiple assists in that game, and he did have 3 shots on goal and a couple of really good chances. He missed an open net on one of them, Kyle Okposo, and you can get as high as plus 425 for him to score a goal, and you can find that at DraftKings right now. He's on the top line with Skinner and with Thompson, and he's plus 425 to score a goal tonight. Kyle Okposo, that is outstanding value. I took it against Detroit. He had a bunch of chances. He only got 2 assists, no goal. But I think at some point he has the kind of offensive impact he had against Detroit. He's going to score a goal, and hopefully that's tonight for the Sabres. Alex, what do you think here, Pittsburgh, Buffalo?
Yeah, this is a tough one from a side and total perspective in my eyes. Buffalo, I'd like to take them if they were a little bit higher of a dog. Even money sounds about right, especially except with the scheduling spot for Pittsburgh. Back-to-back off of a tough overtime game where they blew a lead and off of the road trip before that. So Pittsburgh's probably looking forward to having those couple of days off before they play after this one. So this could be one of those kind of sleepwalk mode games, or this could be one where they say, hey, we need to gear up and let's go into this couple of days of a break with a win. So I want to kind of feel it out, but I'm going to take a shot here with the regulation draw at plus 340. The last 2 meetings, actually the last 4 meetings, 2 of them have gone to OT. The other 2 that went to the end of the regulation were decided by 1 goal and low scoring games, 2-1 and 1-0. We already saw Pittsburgh, I said last night, go into a game in OT. We've seen instances of teams play back-to-back games or 2 games in 3 nights, and both those games go into overtime or a shootout. So I could expect to see a close one. And like I said, it could be a high scoring, maybe 3-3 game that goes OT, or it could be a 1-1 game that goes OT. But we just need to go past 60 to cash the ticket. We got one last night. Hope to get one here tonight with the Penguins and Sabres on the draw.
Yeah, the draw king has been feeling it lately, and that's our guy, Alex B. Smith, with the draws. And here he goes looking for another one here with the Penguins and the Sabres. Pittsburgh was in this spot, I remember, during that road trip of theirs, where it was a back-to-back, struggling, needing a win. You'd expect urgency, desperation. You'd expect it tonight as well after blowing the game last night, but they played Seattle, and they still lost on the back-to-back after losing to Vancouver. So they're in this same spot again, back-to-back after losing the first game. They didn't bounce back the next night against Seattle, and that's why I have my doubts right now, and I like the way Buffalo's playing at this point in time. And actually, if you look at the recent series history, Buffalo has been able to beat the Penguins in Buffalo. The last meeting was 4-3 in Buffalo for the Buffalo Sabres against Pittsburgh. So very capable, the Sabres right now, the way they're playing, in my opinion. Curtis, what do you think here, Penguins Sabres?
I don't know. I'm kind of not sure because Pittsburgh has a lot of I like Buffalo. I really do. I think it's their time. They're coming into their own. I think the next 5 years with Buffalo, they're going to be a team that we talk about a lot. Tage Thompson, that his dad is the one who was coaching me. That I was in that fight one when I was saying.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He's got 2 boys, and they were running around the rink there, and Tomer's a big boy, but he's not the size of Tage, so that kid got some height from somewhere. But no, I love Buffalo. I like what they're doing. They've kind of had that slow that slow rebuild. And I think they're finally coming to their own. But then you look at Pittsburgh, there's a lot of experience over there. So, I find it hard to believe that Crosby and that room is not going to push back tonight, whether the travel, whether it's not. Like, you'd think they're going to come out fighting. So I'm kind of leaning with Alex. Like, it sounds like it's going to be a hockey game and it's going to be a tie going into OT. Or is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah. So regulation draw. And the reason why we specify that because there's a 3-way line. So you can bet if the game ends in regulation for the Penguins or Sabres or a tie, which of course there's no tie. So it just means it goes into overtime. And the reason we specify is because there's also a yes/no prop where the game go to overtime. And if you pick yes, it's the same result, but you get paid out differently. You get more money actually on average. The line's higher and better with a regulation draw than it is yes on overtime. So kind of weird wording that the sportsbooks kind of try to trick you a little bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm kind of with that because I think it's going to be a hockey game. Buffalo's good, and I think Pittsburgh's going to come ready. So I think it's going to be a game.
All right, I think so too. I think it'll be tight. I mean, it's not Buffalo's not going to romp. I just think they'll find a way at the end, and they actually have won it again. The last 2 times Pittsburgh's long term. Again, that's why you always have to take long term numbers with a grain of salt. Long term, Pittsburgh's owned Buffalo, but you actually look at the last couple recent meetings in Buffalo. The Sabres won both of them. 4-2 and 4-3. And they were huge underdogs in both. Remember, that was when Buffalo stunk at the time, and they still ended up beating Pittsburgh in each of the last 2 Buffalo home games against Pittsburgh. So I like the Sabres here. I like the over a little bit. I like a bunch of props in this game, too. Like I said, Okposo, Cousins, and Dahlin for Buffalo goal scorer props. For Pittsburgh, I'd probably look more toward the likes of, for value purposes, Ricard Raquel, Danton Heinen. I know Crosby and Malkin, and you'd think on a night like this, Gensel, guys like that are going to show up, but you don't get as good of a price on their goal scorer prop as some of those other players. So I always like the extra value when it comes to the goal scorer prop market.
And one more thing of note with that game too. Tonight we saw it last night. Actually, Curtis, at the Vancouver game, they were wearing the reverse retro jerseys that are going to drop officially in November. Tonight you're going to see that from both Pittsburgh and Buffalo. Buffalo going with the old goat head in white, blue, and yellow, and they're wearing all white, like everything, like their pads, their gloves, the pants, all white. So it's going to be kind of hard to look at them with the all white marshmallow man look, but that's what they're rocking tonight.
Yeah, it is. I'm fascinated to see. And this is the TNT game. There's only 2 games tonight, and this is the only TNT game tonight. So usually TNT has a doubleheader Wednesday nights. This is the only game they've got tonight, Pittsburgh and Buffalo. So looking forward to seeing how it – and it's a rare chance for Sabres to be on national TV as well. So I'm sure that's another reason they'll be fired up. Speaking of TNT, we know one of the great members of their great studio show, by the way. They have great camaraderie, those guys. Liam McHugh, Anson Carter, Rick Tocchet, Paul Bissonnette, Biz Nasty. And I said this on Twitter last night because I was watching a little bit of the Coyotes postgame. There's Paul Bissonnette, Biz Nasty, still, after all these years, doing pregame and postgame coverage of all the local Arizona Coyotes television broadcasts. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's a superstar now in media. All right, with Spittin' Chicklets, which has gone through the roof, him and the Wit Dog, Ryan Whitney. It's everybody that loves hockey pretty much listens to it and loves it. He's a star on that. He's on TNT, and he's pretty much the guy that, is the star of that panel as well, just because he's such a charismatic, funny guy and entertaining. He's doing TNT every week. He's doing Spittin' Chicklets. He's making, I'm sure, a shit ton of money doing both. He doesn't have to do an 82-game television, local TV schedule for the Arizona fucking Coyotes for a full season with a losing franchise. They haven't won in forever. And yet he commits to being a pregame and postgame analyst on their broadcasts all season long, even though they've been shit for years, even though they're a pimple on the ass of the National Hockey League, this Arizona Coyotes franchise. That's where they're at right now. But he played there. He loves that state. He loves that area. He loves that franchise. And he could easily say, screw off. I'm not doing this anymore. I've got my Spittin' Chicklets gig. I got my TNT gigs. I'm making good money. I don't need to deal with this crap and this team that keeps on losing every year. But he loves the team. He loves the area. And he's still there to do the local broadcasts on the Bally, Arizona. for the local broadcast pre and post game. So, and it's because he loves the team. He loves the team too much to leave and to quit. So I give him all the props in the world and all the respect for that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, just to have that kind of energy and to take up your time with that, even looking at Olchek, to do the TNT games, and he was, doing all the Hawks games for a while, as many as he could, and now he's with Seattle. I mean, and he was battling through health issues as well. It's amazing what some of these announcers. We don't give them enough credit for the kind of work and miles they log in every year.
Yeah, and Wayne Gretzky, of course, since he's been part of the TNTs, like he's really gotten comfortable, and he's a little bit more engaging. He's doing BetMGM commercials now with Connor McDavid. They're trying to, he actually didn't do a bad job of them. Wayne's loosening up. We always thought Wayne, great, all-time great player, of course, in the sport, but not always the most energetic, charismatic guy in the world. Well, he's loosening up here these last couple of years, which has been good to see, no question. And the being on TNT has certainly helped that. This has been a great show. Absolutely awesome stuff with Alex B. Smith and our guest, of course, Curtis Fraser. Curtis, my man, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed being on the show.
No, it was awesome. Going back to the Phoenix thing, though, I was watching their game the other night, and I kind of had the opposite. I'm like, you know what? I want to go there. So I was looking at flights to go there just to see what this is like. What is that arena like?
You like that Mullet Arena atmosphere, right?
Is it loud? Like I don't know. It's a perfect college arena. It's not an NHL.
Oh yeah, right.
But for college, it'd be beautiful.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I was.
Yeah, my kid would love to go there. Like, check it out. So I mean, I'm kind of, I want to see what that's all about, and I want to see it in person because TV, I don't know if it did it justice because it's got to be loud in there. You'd think.
Yeah, you would think that. And I was saying it yesterday, watching the first couple of games. I said, yeah, this would be a wonderful place. I'd love to catch, either team, the Coyotes or a Arizona State game. And this has got to be great publicity for ASU because that program, of course, they were a long-time club program, finally moving up to D1. But you can't get any better of an endorsement, to have NHL games played in your barn. And like you said, you already got a great sell of, coming out to sunny California, Arizona State, one of the more notorious schools in the United States. All that combined, it's really kind of a bigger win for them than it is for the Yotes. But it's definitely an atmosphere I would definitely be down to see it. It's, seem like it's going to be another two more seasons before they get everything done. And it's assuming that they sign off on these paperwork at the end of the month with the Tempe City Council on the news. That's really November 29th is really kind of could be D-Day for that franchise because if Tempe doesn't sign off on this new arena, the league's more than likely going to be moving them. So, we'll at least have a couple more years of them in Mullet Arena, and then we'll see what the future holds after that.
I like what Poe Buddy's Nerfic said in the chat. If and when Ian becomes famous, which I'm still waiting on, by the way, he'll still be committed to the Ice Guys. That's right.
Yep.
The Ice Guys will be the Ice Guys for me will be Bally, Arizona Coyotes games for Paul Bissonnette. I will never abandon the Ice Guys. I'm here for life, essentially. No TNT, ESPN shit will ever take me away from the Ice Guys. Never. I'm doing this until I drop dead. Essentially, that's my hope anyway. That's my goal. At 80 years old, I'm still here talking NHL betting and doing the Ice Guys show. Honestly, I'm not bullshitting. No shit with that either. I honestly hope to do that. I hope to do this show for 3-4 decades. Honestly,
or hopefully we can make this show the next TNT or ESPN show. I think that's really the big goal there.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you this right now. In terms of NHL betting shows on YouTube right now, I think ours is the best of the best because we're here 7 days a week. We talk every single game all season long in great depth and analysis, and we enjoy it. We love it.
And we have wonderful guests like Curtis. So.
That's right. We've incredible guests. I mean, it's just we keep on adding great. I mean, we had great guests in the playoffs last year. I mean, it was endless the amount of great guests with Carl Alsner, Eddie Lack, Bobby Ryan, going on and on and on. We had Jay Roselle was terrific last week. We've had a bunch of great guests last year during the playoffs. Matt Carey goes on and on and on. Incredible guests we had. Great insight to the game. And Curtis, same thing. Hope to have you back later this season, Curtis, for sure.
You betcha. Thanks a lot, guys, for having me.
But before we let you go, we'll start with Curtis here. Your first ever Ice Guys best bet for this Wednesday night slate. Sounds like you like Toronto, though, most of all.
Yeah, I like Toronto, but I liked your props on that. What was the
Buffalo game?
Yeah, the props on that with the Cousins or an Okaposo. I like that too.
I do too. Yep. Yep. No doubt. And Darlene as well, because he's been scoring a lot from the blue line. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. Like in Toronto is Curtis Fraser. We'll go Toronto puck line -1.5, -130 for a little bit better value for that one tonight against the Flyers. Alex, what do you like for best bet?
We're going to go with that draw with the Penguins and Sabres. You can find anywhere between +40, +350. Like I said, these two teams, kind of interesting spots from the scheduling perspective, but they've always played each other tight in the last 4 meetings. We saw a couple of high-scoring affairs that went into overtime or shootout, a couple of low-scoring affairs that were decided by 1 goal. So I think this might be kind of a close one. Let's go Pittsburgh, Buffalo, draw, +340 is my best bet.
All right, Pittsburgh Buffalo draw +340, best bet for Alex B. Smith. Cash with Anaheim I did last night, and I'm going to go to Buffalo here and take the Sabres. Hopefully it's Sabres in overtime or a shootout. That would be great. Buffalo, and we'll both cash, Alex and I. Buffalo +100 is the best price currently. I actually got +105 on this, but +100 is the best price right now. Sabres even money. Ride the hot, fade the cold. That's what we're doing here. Buffalo +100 against Pittsburgh for my best bet. All right, that'll wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. And reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith and our special guest, Curtis Fraser, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. We will talk to you again tomorrow on Thursday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by National Hockey Now.